Does your child refuse certain foods based on their texture, taste, or appearance? If that's you, this video is for you. Hello and welcome to Kids Nutrition and Picky Eating. I'm Dr. Lum. Join me in this video where we explore how sensory processing is affecting your child's eating habits, and we'll talk about how to help you start working through that particular challenge. So what is sensory sensitivity? So that's when the brain processes sensory inputs very differently, and then you end up with a kid who is hypersensitive, whether it's to sight, to sound, to appearance, to textures. When this happens, the kids who have this sensory processing issues or sensitivities, they end up with behaviors that are turning towards certain particular textures of foods. So for example, you may have a kid who wants to eat only white stuff, pasta, rice, mashed potatoes, or fries. So anything with that kind of color, that appearance is what they will take to. But if you present anything that is colorful, it's overwhelming to them. So they tend to run away from those and lean more towards those colors or textures or appearance of foods that are not as overwhelming, because according to them, it's so overwhelming that they can't even come close to it. So imagine if you're eating something and it tastes really funny in your mouth, like you're eating sand and stuff. You're probably not going to want to eat that, especially if you had that previous experience with a particular kind of texture. Then you tend to stay away from it, because once you see anything that looks and tastes or feels the same way as something that you'd experienced before, you probably run away from it. So that's why some kids may have issues when it comes to hypersensitivity or sensory sensitivities. So how does this present then? You'll see kids who have this issue, they'll present behaviors where at the sight of a food, they just gag. A kid who, if you present anything soft, so if you present something like mashed potatoes, oatmeal, yogurt, anything in that consistency, they will at the sight of it just gag. Or you will see a kid who, even once you have any strong odors, because smell is one of those, right? Where if you have strong odors like garlic or onions or anything spicy, they're closing their nostrils and running away from that, where they won't even want to be in a place where you're even meal prep may be an issue then, because if you're using things like onions or garlic or anything that is too spicy and stuff, they run away from it or will close their nostrils to it. So if you have a kid who is presenting with such behaviors, now you know sensory processing or sensory sensitivities may be what's driving your kid to be picky and creating those mealtime challenges. So if you've identified that this is you, now what can you do to help with that? First, I'll say start by listing the foods that you've noticed that your kid would take to. That way you have an idea of the textures or colors or smells of foods that your kid likes. When we start from there, then the next step is to start exposing it slowly by changing only one characteristics of the food. What do I mean by that? If your kid likes crunchy per se and will eat apples, you may start by a simple switch from an apple to a pear. Same texture, same consistency. You're not really changing anything except it's a green apple to a green pear. So you want to make sure you're consistent with that color and everything. So the appearance is the same, the crunch is the same, the taste is the only thing that differs. And then from there, you can switch from pear to carrots, raw carrots, I mean. So it's the same consistency, but the color is different, the taste is different. So it is a very slow process, but the whole idea is it's slow. It gets them where you're reducing that anxiety and that fear from the unknown, or from getting into something that may cause that overwhelm and that anxiety that rises up within them from eating something that is really perceived as not good. That's one thing. Or if you have a kid who loves soft foods, you can start with plain yogurt, change it to even a flavored colored yogurt, changing it down to adding fruits or real fruits into the yogurt. So you're starting again with the softs, first changing just the color and then adding the fruits in there like consistency of it, but being mindful that you are taking it nice and slow. Now, the third thing is that, when we're talking about food, the end point is actually putting the food in your mouth and chewing it and swallowing it. So prior to that, you want to make sure that if you have your kid who's sensitive like that, that you're not only exposing them at mealtime, but you're using other opportunities around mealtime to expose them to certain textures where they're playing with food per se. So it could be where even the first time you expose mashed potatoes, just putting it there, if the kid even allows it on the plate, that's good. If the kid touches it, puts it on their skin, that's them exploring the food. And you want that because that's them trying to figure out, is this good? Is this not good? How does this feel on my body or on my hands before I even put it in my mouth? Because if it's not feeling good on their hands or even on their bodies, chances are it'll be very difficult to put it in your mouths. And if you start forcing it, it causes more anxiety around mealtime and causes a lot of stress. So you want them to play with their food. You want to have sensory activities, even let's say during bad times where with the toys, with the wet toys, is nice and soft and squishy. And you really expose them to different textures, whether it's with toys, whether it's with activities around food or painting and feeling stuff. Now, I have seen kids when we talk about food exploration, food play, and the parents are like, this kid will not touch anything. Sometimes putting it in a bag or a Ziploc bag where they're not in direct contact with the food and just having them explore it from there, whether it's Play-Doh or it's gel, and have them kind of touch it where you're touching it. It's not too messy, but you're still being exposed to those textures. That's one way you can try to overcome that. Now, if you have a kid who is like, I'm not going to touch anything, I can't do it and stuff, of course you want to seek help from our friendly occupational therapists who have all these play bins and different textures where they can really go in there and explore different textures, and they can help you with that gradual process. And finally, the whole idea is to make sure that meal times are not as stressful, right? So you want to make sure that you release that expectation of them trying the new food the initial time you present it, knowing that it is an extremely slow process where you during mealtime you can even, as you start out the transition, you make sure that you take giving it multiple tries and not pressuring to take it food in your mouth. Another thing you can do is even start by pairing the foods, the old food or the preferred food with a new food, but being aware that if you're putting something new, you want a really smaller portion size, and that way it's not too overwhelming, like I have to take 3 bites of this as opposed to I only have to take 1 bite. That releases the anxiety somewhat. Avoiding snacking throughout the day where you have some sort of a routine where there's nothing to eat or drink except water at least 2 hours before mealtime. The biggest reason why I've seen parents struggle through this or where it doesn't really go as planned is when we try to introduce so many foods at the same time, because we want our kids to eat, we want to nourish them, we want them not to have that nutritional deficiencies that we talk about. I get it, but sometimes when you do it too fast or you do too many at the same time, it becomes overwhelming and then it backfires and then you're back to square one. So be patient. This is a slow process. Celebrate every win. And as time goes on, slowly your kid is going to start taking to one food after the other. And like I said, if this is not working for you, you want to talk to your healthcare professional, you want to talk to your friendly occupational therapist because they can help you through this process. Now, if you found this video helpful and you have a parent who you think might need this, please share with them. And as always, don't forget to subscribe for more tips on helping your picky eater eat. I'll see you in the next video. I'm Dr. Lum.